Good afternoon, friends. You're listening to BISTalk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we make courageous contagious. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smit.
And I'm Cannata, and we've got a pragmatic show today.
Pragmatic?
And it's a returning guest, and based on what he does, I have a feeling I might have used that adjective the last time you came in. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't expect anybody in this room to remember it, but it just seems perfect for what you're doing.
And actually, Alastair Caithness is here. He's CEO of Ziyen Oil and Energy Incorporated. Alastair, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me.
I'm glad you come back because a lot of people won't.
Yeah, but I enjoy your company too much.
You crazy Scotsman. We keep getting the Scottish on, and we love the accent, and you seem gullible enough to continue to come back.
Is it a chick magnet? Because it sounds like it would be a chick magnet.
He's known as the Wild Ginger. Does that tell you everything that you need to know?
That's my new nickname again. It was a reinvigorated nickname, so that's not
that
right
works.
word,
Sure.
So it's good. It's Wild Ginger's back.
Well, thank you for coming back. We want to talk about Ziyen Oil and Energy, but you also have a great connection to the Autism Speaks Foundation, which I'd like to get into. But before we go there, let's talk about Ziyen. What are you doing there for people that didn't hear the last episode?
So our company now it's a Regulation A+ company that's in round 2 of funding, and we're working our way towards going public on the NASDAQ. So originally the company was an information-based company in oil contracts, and then we transitioned to acquire our first oil lease, and then we started to build up our oil reserves and acquiring more oil leases. And then essentially what we're looking to do is to use a new system, a Ziyen Advantage, whereby we use renewable energy to push down oil production costs and get involved in the transition of energy from fossil fuels to renewable energy. Essentially what we're trying to do is join the dots of energy.
Sounds brilliant. Regulation A+ is a pretty new thing. It was part of the Jobs Act back in 2012. Is that how it came about? Can you explain what it is? Like, it's a new way to actually fund a business, right?
So to me, Regulation A+, it was created by Obama in the Jobs Act. So what it allows is non-accredited investors this first time in history opportunity to invest in companies at incubation stage as they go through rounds of funding. So under the old S1, which is the way traditionally companies go public, the only people who could invest at these early stages were accredited investors. What Regulation A+ has done is allowed non-accredited investors this opportunity to invest in at the ground up and get on board at a set price when it's at its cheapest and work its way through.
So accredited investors are those that have net worths of $1 million or $200,000 a year for 2 years if they're single and $300,000 if they're married, which eliminates a fair amount of investors in the United States.
Yeah, you're basically your top 1-2%.
Yeah.
So
non-accredited investors can invest.
Yeah, non-accredited investors can invest. So this is the first time in history that's actually been allowed to happen anywhere in the world, and America's leading the way.
Is there a minimum or maximum investment per individual, and then is there a maximum you can raise this way?
Well, it depends on what your offering is. So at the moment, our offering at the moment is to sell 10 million shares at $1.50 to generate $15 million. There's a minimum investment into the company of $525, which is 350 shares. So you sort of set the minimum yourself when you're doing this. So you actually make it an amount that's obviously it's not worth making it too low.
If you make it $10, the paperwork to take that investment in is more than the money you get. Yeah,
exactly. So you've got to have a cut-off point, but then you want to increase the investors. So right now we've got about 320 investors in the company.
Wow, that's brilliant. Are you also going after some larger investors, hoping they might cut a $5 million check, or is this very purposeful, meaning you wanted to get as many people on this?
Well, originally with the Reg A, as we're working through the process, was to just bring in as many non-accredited investors, but recently I appointed a new CFO in the company, Dean Holter. So he's come from a background in the markets. He's worked with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, the Clinton Foundation, the UN, a number of blue chip organizations.
Anybody that has names we'd recognize?
Probably not. Nobody that doesn't make any money. So but he's come in, and what he's doing for the company right now, he's actually setting up opportunities for bigger investment groups and your accredited investors to come in and basically invest in different ways through like convertible notes or through Reg D offerings, which is essentially going back to the traditional way where the accredited investors or investment groups are coming in as well. And it really just, from his perspective, he goes, you know, whether somebody invests through a convertible note or not, the point is, if someone came along from a big investment group and wanted to actually invest in the company through a convertible note, and you are not set up to do this,
Right.
then you're not going to do that. So what he's doing right now is he's getting his market ready, you know. So I think if you're going to go through this process of taking your company public, then Regulation A+ is perfect to start and work your way through. As you're getting closer to IPO and going in the markets, essentially you've got to assimilate the way all the other companies are operating on the markets, and therefore you've got to create all the different investing streams as possible, because you've got to work with the way the traditional investment market works.
Now, let's talk about why people would look at this as an investment, because the what you're doing is revolutionary, it's disruptive, it's different from what I've heard before, but it's so cool. You're taking an industry that's very old compared to the United States anyway. It's been around a long time, and America was kind of built, I think you said this before the show, America was built on the oil industry. I mean, that was a big part of our growth in the early years. So, well, not the early years of America, but the last 200 anyway. So what is your plan to take oil and turn it into a renewable energy concept?
So essentially it's just the production of oil. So we're going into the Midwest basins. So these are basins that the big oil companies used to operate 30 years ago. Because of the way the structure in these basins are. So we're operating in the Illinois basin, which covers Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky. You know, back in 1910, they used to produce nearly 100,000 barrels of oil there. Now they're producing 30,000 barrels or 33,000 barrels. So
you mean it doesn't automatically refill when you take it out?
Yeah, it's just, well, it's to do with the farmers, because ultimately it's because you've got to do a deal with the farmers, because the farmers own the land and we own the mineral rights. So what's stopping the big oil companies wanting to operate there is because they can't get economies of scale.
And farmers want to charge for that, don't they?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. The farmers don't work for free.
Yeah, and we'll get back to that. Alastair Caithness is here, CEO of Ziyen Oil and Energy, and we're going to talk about Autism Speaks in just a little bit. Ziyen is ZIYEN.com is the website. Go there. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Lieutenant Smit.
And I'm Aaron Cannata.
And this is BISTalk. We'll be right back. I think I'm developing an announcer voice for that. This is BISTalk.
So I imagine you just show your potential investors the movie There Will Be Blood and say, I'm going to be Daniel Day-Lewis.
Oh, jeez.
Well, it's not that. It's more like the old Dallas GRU, you know. That's why I like the cowboy boots.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
been wearing the suit, and I've been going down the Midwest, and I've seen cowboy boots. So my next step is, as I assimilate to becoming more Midwest, it's like a suit with cowboy boots, and then it'll be like the Stetson.
Yep.
You know, that'll be the final.
But what
That's
about
a
when
topper.
I hear your accent? Do you put on a Texas accent?
No, I just put it there. There's a guy, Gary Tusey, who's been producing oil there for like 45 years, and he's like one of the guy's an amazing character. You know, he's got even in his house.
The last show was pragmatic too.
You knew it.
I had
You knew it.
It struck me that literally, as we were gearing up to do the show, I was thinking, what am I going to do? I found it, and then the music was playing, and I was like, this just makes too much sense.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I must have used this one before.
So
That's so funny.
This guy's hilarious. And, you know, he basically, the way they're producing oil, they haven't changed in 30 years. You know, he's even got one of these little nodding donkeys that goes in his front yard. You know what I mean? That produces half a barrel a day.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he's made a lot of money. This guy. He's like, I've been over to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and seen a lot of the women in the burqas. Whereby
Is the Texas billionaire who lived here with Pat Boone? Is he still alive or is he
Yeah,
dead?
he's still alive.
No, not Pat Boone.
Not Pat Boone. What's his name? You know who I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
I know who
Like
you're talking
he was
about.
a Texas
But
billionaire
Boone
T-Bone
Pickens.
Pickens.
T-Bone
Pickens.
No,
Pickens.
T-Bone Pickens. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's still alive?
As far as I know. Yeah,
I
as
don't
far as I know.
But
I've
yeah,
met Pat Boone, by the way.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Pat Boone.
I've not met Pat.
The actor, singer, Pat
Yeah,
Boone.
So yeah, but this guy's got the biggest diamond pinky ring you've ever seen in your life. You know? So you know he's done okay.
Yeah.
Me and Shane were there. We both just sat there. We met him in McDonald's to have like our first meeting with him. You know, it's just because the walls have ears in these places in the Midwest, so you always meet somewhere a little bit weird. You know, so no one will know. and comes in there, and he's a great character. You know, I mean, he always tells me about this Scottish guy that went to the basin in 1979 and lost all his money. You know, and he tells me the same story over and over.
Keeping you in check.
Welcome back. You're listening to BISTalk, believing in seeing talk radio, where we make courageous contagious. The Wild Ginger, Alastair Caithness, is in the studio with us today. He is the founder and CEO of Ziyen Oil and Energy, a Scottish-American company focused on delivering 100% energy independence for the USA. Boy, I like the sound of that. I'm Montana Smit.
I'm Aaron Cannata.
I'm Bob Ryan. Welcome back to our Pragmatic Show, and our award-winning engineer, Jeff Bilodeau, just came in and told us, confirmed it. This was the Pragmatic Show the last time.
I think that's the moral.
Alistair, I want to get back to your business model, but first of all, you're Scottish. You have a Scottish accent. When you go to Texas, what's that like for you?
Well, it's not really Texas. It's out in Illinois. I go
in
to,
Illinois. Okay.
Yeah, so I go to Houston when it's Texas, but they're more used to Scottish people there. It's when you go out to some of the backwater places.
The Midwest?
Indiana and Illinois. It's just, they just look at us. Shane and I are just there. We walk in, they just look at us, and they just, you know, where are you guys from? And we go, Scotland.
Where's that?
Yeah.
Dressed in some nice cowboy boots, maybe, what are they called, the 2-gallon hats?
No, 10-gallon.
I'm sorry, the 10-gallon hat, but there's no getting around that accent.
Yeah. And then they go, Scotland, where's that? And I go, next to Ireland.
Where's that? It's part of Great Britain. Where's that?
Yeah. So it's just, but yeah, and then they all go, I love your accent. And then, but
you do have, it's a very attractive accent to listen to.
It's Sean Connery.
Yeah.
He made a lot of favorites.
Yeah, he helped a lot. He's helped a lot of Scottish guys get a lot of American
You've had
women.
a few famous That's a good point. It's a chick magnet, isn't it? Yeah. So, do you play golf?
Yeah, I play golf.
Yeah.
Also a Scottish invention.
Yeah, Scottish invention. I actually shot 80 last week. It was my best score in a long time. You know,
I did that on the back 9 holes, I think. Yeah.
So, I was keeping it quiet from my little brother in that, so because we play once a year in a competition, so you know I didn't want to let it out. But you know now he'll probably watch the show, so cut me a couple of shots when we play.
You're at the helm of a company called Ziyen Oil and Energy, and Ziyen is spelled Z-I-Y-E-N. Put a .com on that. That's the website. Go there. You're in the middle of raising money on your first round with A+ fundraising.
Yeah,
second round. A+ raised. So non-accredited investors can invest in this. The minimum investment you said was $525. And shares are $1.50 right now.
$1.50 right now.
And then you're going to go. I guess you've got some plans to talk to some institutional investors or VC or more well-heeled investors, let's say?
Yeah, so basically it's like a journey. So you start working through the process. So we'll probably go through at least one more round of funding before we go public. Maybe 2 rounds of funding before we go public as well.
The CFO you talked about, he seems like, he's been around the block. He's kind of a big deal. Was that validation for you when you showed him what you were going to do and he decided to come on board? Did you have to give away the farm, or was he so sold on your mission and vision, and did that somehow give you extra validation for what it is you're saying? Because it's pretty novel, right? I mean, what you're doing is not the norm in the energy world.
Yeah, so it's, to me, they use the word I'm trying to use the word enhance, because essentially, you know, when you look at companies like ExxonMobil, who turn over $500 billion, and there's about 20 companies turn over $500 billion now in the oil and energy industry. So if our company turns over $500 million in 5 years, it sounds a lot, and it will be a lot of money if I'm in charge of the bank account.
1%.
That's my bank account, I'll be happy looking at that every day. But the difference really being is realistically what you're looking to do. And I think everybody uses the word now disrupt too often, you know, because essentially what it does is it means you're sort of everything that's happened up until now, you sort of say, well, that didn't
But
actually
you're
matter.
right, you are enhancing, not disruptive.
Enhancing. We're trying to enhance the oil and energy industry. So, you know, what we believe that what we could do is by creating our own successful energy company, by actually going into these areas and using renewable energy, which will bring business back into these areas, increase production into the Midwest, what I'll be able to do is take this product and maybe roll it out across all the other nodding donkeys.
So let's go back to the nodding donkeys. Then just oil.
That's another. So it's a pump jack here, but in Scotland. It was a friend of Shane Fraser, who's business partner in the company from Scotland. He calls them nodding donkeys, and I just thought, I'm going to call them nodding donkeys.
One more question about Scotland. Have you watched Outlander yet?
I have actually. I've watched the first episode since we last came on.
When you asked him, we told him about it.
Yeah, it's one of your favorite shows, isn't it?
Yes, it is, indeed.
And we sponsored the San Diego Highland Games.
Oh, I love the Highland Games.
And it was tossing the caber. So Mingus entered the competition to toss the caber. But the numbers have been swelling in Highland Games now because Outlander fans are now going to the Highland Games. And this year was the first year at the San Diego Highland Games, the Outlander sort of group had their own stall.
Like Scottish Olympics?
Yeah, it's like the traditional events of actually throwing the hammer, tossing the sheaf, and tossing the caber. And the guys
is the caber the log, the big heavy?
Yeah, the big heavy log.
Yeah,
the telephone pole.
How much do those weigh? Do you know?
More
than 10 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out then.
Oh, the women are doing the caber now at 60, 70 pounds.
No way.
And then the men are going up to like over 100 pounds.
And are they in kilts while they're doing
this?
Yeah, they all wear the kilts, but they all wear like a sports kilt. But, Mingus wore from Scotland, he wears the real kilt.
The Lululemon kilt.
Yeah. So it's so yeah, the sports kilt's becoming popular. But then when you went to San Diego Highland Games this year, the amount of people had their own design kilt was amazing. You know, you wouldn't see this. So it's becoming really fashionable, and it's all, I think, off the back of the Outlander show that's actually started to really increase the numbers that's happening here as well. So I think it's amazing how a TV show has actually brought so many more people into
it's
the
a
sport.
Good show. It really is. I didn't think the concept was great until I watched it, and then it really is very exciting to watch. So the concept that you have to build a base on this, that there are basins in the country, and you're speaking mostly of the Midwest right now.
Yeah,
Illinois,
so it's an older
Kentucky.
basin. Yes, older basin. So you're looking at the Illinois basin, and then you're looking at Oklahoma, Wyoming, Kansas. Basins whereby traditionally, if you went back 30 years, all the big oil companies were there.
Does the term basin just mean oil producing area, or is it a geographical term? Topographical?
So it's the basin's the area where it is. So there it's, they call it Illinois Basin, but it spans Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky.
Because it's like a pool of oil underground. Is that kind of the...
exactly. So that's exactly what it is.
So are they running lower on oil now, or is it the farmers that are stopping the production, but the production's going down in those arenas, correct?
Yeah, or staying steady, or they're starting to come up again within these areas, because you've got a lot of smaller operators that are getting smarter in how they actually operate.
Jeez, I can't believe this segment just went by. Holy cow. This is going really fast. We've been talking about Scotland. We could talk about that a lot. It's a great country. Alastair Caithness with us, Ziyen Oil and Energy. We're going to talk about Ziyen more when we get back. Ziyen.com is the website. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smit.
And I'm Aaron Cannata.
And this is BISTalk. Don't you dare go anywhere. We'll be right back.
So we actually sponsored the caber. So they painted the caber white, and they put Ziyen, Scottish-American company bringing business back into the USA, on the site, painted it white, put the logo on, and then at the game, so Mingus was the one that got to toss the caber, and he managed to do it. But all the big guys were there saying, so they made it a qualifying caber, because some of those guys are like...
Oh, they're monsters.
Yeah, have you ever seen the World's Strongest Man competition?
Yeah.
There's always a Scot in there. Always.
Yeah.
There's not always somebody from every other country.
but Mingus tossed it, and we videoed it and everything else, so pleased for him in that. He hurt himself doing it, but it was... he trained hard to get to toss the caber and stuff, so... But I think it's a great outlet for him as well, So it's I said we should do more games. Doesn't matter if you get injured or not. This will help your fan base. Build you up, Mingus.
Take one for the company.
Take one for the company, and then he does it with his top off as well. So and then because Mingus is a movie actor, good looking, whereby a lot of the guys there are just your sort of these guys are like beasts, brutes, beasts sort of thing there. And then Mingus is doing it with his top off, with all muscles and that. And then so he's obviously, this is a great way to build up his fan base.
Often he photoshops my body and puts his head on. I get tired of that.
Yeah, so it's perfect,
Yeah.
So it's
that was funny.
But yeah, it's definitely something when you actually go to it. It makes you feel more Scottish and stuff, And then there's a lot of ex-Scottish people at that show. Or a lot
One of our dreams is to get to Scotland. We want to take the
you.
draft horses and across Scotland.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
What are we coming back in with?
We'll continue on the story of the basins and what they're doing in production and what you're adding value to do.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that how the opportunity is created.
Yeah. Well, let's do that, but we haven't really gotten into the meat of Ziyen yet. So yeah, we should do that.
Holy mountain.
All right, we're coming back in. Welcome back. You're listening to BizTalk, Believing is Seen Talk Radio, where we make courageous contagious. And he is enhancing the oil and energy industry. We're talking today with Alastair Caithness, the CEO of Ziyen Oil and Energy. I'm Montana Smit.
I'm Aaron Cannata.
I'm Bob Ryan. And Alastair, thanks again for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
You've got a great story to tell here. We talked about the fact that you're in your second round of fundraising right now under Reg A+. But the story is really the important part to get out there right now because it's a great story. So there are basins in the United States of oil. There's huge basins in the Midwest. And you said that these basins were producing a lot, then dropped down, and some of them are coming back up again?
Yeah, so essentially the Permian Basin's the big basin in America. So that's where all the shale gas play is. That's where the big growth has been in America the last few years. So these are the older basins, the traditional basins that did the crude oil, and they still have shale gas plays in as well. So the Permian Basin does nearly 3 million barrels a day compared to the Illinois Basin that does 33,000 barrels a day. So
these basins are small in comparison to the big ones then?
Yeah, very small.
All right.
So because they're small, and then because the nature of the structure there, so we own the mineral rights, whereby the farmer owns the land and he gets a percentage of the production that we make. So in the Illinois Basin, it's an eighth, 12.5%. So that's what you're essentially partnering with the farmer. So when we first went to the basin with Shane Fraser, who's oil and gas expert in the company, when we first started going there, we were looking at all these storage facilities be at the corner of the field, and we're thinking, why do they have 4 lots of storage facilities rather than just one big one? But that's because the farmer doesn't want to mix in his oil with the guy next door.
So where the 4 farms join up at the corners there, they've got their own storage facilities.
Yeah, so they're producing there. So you would think, so it's this inability to have economies of scale is the reason why the big companies don't want to do it.
The farmers are actually taking possession of an eighth of this oil, or is it just the money, monetarily?
It's the money. Yeah, it's the money. So when we actually get the money from the refining company, they get an eighth of the production.
But it's got to be stored somewhere until the trucks come pick it up or it gets piped out somewhere.
Yeah. So why would the farmers have an issue with one big silo in the
because they don't trust their oil getting mixed in with the oil next door.
Yeah,
so it's just,
oil's not measurable as much as grain is, so especially if it's coming from 4 sources, right?
Yeah, and then again, it's just how much do you trust? A lot of the farmers, they're not from Scotland, so we're from a rural community, and even though your farmers are all, when I'm from Glenesk in Scotland, it's all your cousins, your uncles, everyone there, but you're all related, but you don't trust each other.
So are you
as we find out if we watch Outlander, right?
Exactly. It's the same. It's the same rule all the way through.
Are you buying up existing contracts then? Are these all in place and you're just kind of taking them over because your model might work better?
Yeah. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to buy either leases or currently producing leases. So we're looking to buy currently producing leases at a sort of lower price. And then we're looking to implement our Ziyen Advantage system to increase production, and therefore we're looking to get the return in revenue in the first 3 to 5 years of the production. But then we're still looking to produce for maybe another 10 years, but this is where we're looking to make money, because ultimately we don't have the capex spent involved in paying for infrastructure and paying for this is like ExxonMobil, BP, Shell.
Is that why you're able to get the leases at a lower cost? Because the economies of scale aren't there and the bigger companies really will sell these off to invest in something bigger?
Yeah, so they're involved in massive projects all over the world. It's like ExxonMobil runs an oil field out in Iraq that produces over 400,000 barrels a day.
Which is larger than a single basin in Illinois.
In a year.
It was 400,000 barrels a day for one oil field compared to 30,000 barrels here, compared to 150,000 barrels in Oklahoma.
Wow.
So you can see how much money that makes. And then it puts into, if it wasn't for companies like Apple and Amazon, you know, you would be looking at companies like ExxonMobil and just thinking these guys are so huge because, you know, that oil field makes them 30 million a day and make 30 million tomorrow, 30 million next day, 30 million, you know, so by the end of the week they've made $210 million, you know, so it's a huge amount of money. So they don't want to operate in these small basins because the only way they can actually operate there is the technology's not really changed too much for the majority of operators, and they're not all of them, not the ones who are growing and increasing the size of the basin, but a lot of the small mom and paps who do the stripper wells. The way they're producing oil now is the same way they produced oil 30 years ago.
So why haven't they sold that already? Has nobody come along like you with an idea like yours for it to make sense to actually go in and buy them?
No, it's just they're drilling deeper now to access the oil. It's just a case of if you're running a small operation that makes 200 barrels a year and you've only got 4 or 5 people in the company, they're usually all the family members. These people are very wealthy, you know. When you actually meet a small operator there, you know, you can be one of the richest people you meet, you know, because they're making $7-8 million a year. So you're just thinking, you know, that's a lot of money for 4 or 5 people. You know, the difference is when you go in with an oil company that has 100,000 people working them and it's huge overheads, they essentially don't want to touch these basins because they just cannot get the economies of scale and the profitability that they want. So essentially the marketplace of it being very fragmented has created the opportunity for us.
I think I missed everything you said since you said stripper well.
Right, stripper well.
I must have missed the stripper.
So that's it.
What is a stripper? Well, get your mind out the gutter.
Stripper well's got nothing to do with
okay, all right,
what you were thinking about.
So what's a stripper well?
So stripper well's just like the sort of traditional small producing nodding donkey that's go up that might only produce like 4 barrels or 6 barrels or 8 barrels a day. You know, Gary Tucci, who we work with in our second lease that's there, he's even got a tiny one in his front yard that produces half a barrel a day.
Because he can.
Yeah,
so we've got micro and nano breweries here in San Diego. These are like micro and nano oil refineries.
Oil companies.
Yeah.
Oil companies, exactly, and that's how the basin has been constructed. So
okay, so when you buy an oil lease that's producing at too small an amount for the big companies to make good amounts of money on, how much of a discount can you get on those leases?
Well, it's either the leases or buy the production, but we're looking to buy them obviously as cheap as possible, and then we're looking to go in there as a lot of companies move into the shale gas play, where they can produce a lot more gas than they can with the old traditional crude oil. So we want to pick up the smaller, older traditional crude oil that these guys are looking to divest their assets. We want to apply our Ziyen Advantage technology so we can actually increase the current production in it and then also push down the production costs. And therefore, we're looking to get our revenue coming in from the beginning.
How much does your Scottish background lend to the cheapness of the price you buy?
It's actually very beneficial.
Yeah. Alastair Caithness is here. He's CEO of Ziyen Oil and Energy. Ziyen.com is the website. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smit.
And I'm Aaron Cannata.
And this is BISTalk. Stay with us. Don't change the dial.
Don't change. Come on back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's so as we started going through the strategy, the opportunity is becoming more and more for us to come in there. So what we'll look to do is just to keep acquiring more and more production, because I feel if we buy the production I think Dave Rogers, who's the vice president of the company, you know, he basically says it's a bit like a barbecue. This is his analogy. It's a barbecue, and then when you go the next day to tidy up the barbecue, there's always bits of beer left in lots of little bottles and cans and stuff like that as well. And essentially what our company's looking to come in is scoop up all the old beer that's sitting there, and then apply the technology to increase production in it.
I had a friend that never bought a drink in his life. We'd go to a bar together, and he'd walk around and take people's drinks off the table. It was insane.
That reminds me of that scene from Caddyshack where the kid, Spalding, the just obnoxious nephew, is there at the gala, and he just keeps finishing people's drinks behind their back, and then he goes out and pukes in the nice Porsche that belongs to the doctor sitting right in front of him.
In Scotland, they call it minesweeping.
Minesweeping. My daughter used to do that when she was younger. She'd take my drinks and bust the table and drink them on the way back.
Smart girl.
It was like, she was 14. You shouldn't drink. So let's come back and talk about why you're acquiring the leases and
buying up the production and then trying to increase the production because of the revenue.
Because believe it or not, we're halfway over. I can't believe this.
How does just
stumbled
buying the
over
production allow you to implement your technology?
Because
Wouldn't you have to be on the land with the nodding donkeys?
Yeah, but we're going to. So we'll buy the production, and then Shane and our team of technical experts are going to bring out the renewable infrastructure through containers.
That's what we need to get to.
Okay. And they'll set it up on the traditional. So we're not going to change what's happening. We're going to actually start generating the electricity for the pump jack. You know, so it's the power.
Yeah,
where does the power come from?
Technology, that's their edge.
Yeah, that's what we need to get to.
And then the other benefit is the fact that we can work off grid, which is another key aspect of it. And I think this is how we can actually scale up higher, quicker across the
We
world.
need to, because our grid's at risk.
Okay, we're coming in, guys. That was a quick break. Wow. Welcome back. You're listening to BizTalk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we make courageous contagious. And are you courageous enough to see what goes on here in the studio? I bet you are. Come watch us on our BizTalk Radio Facebook page. That's BISTalk. See us with our guests and watch this overly oiled machine in action. And by all means, comment, like, and share us. I'm Montana Smit.
I'm Aaron Cannata.
I'm Bob Ryan. Glad to have you all with us. Alastair Caithness is here. He is CEO of Ziyen Oil and Energy. ZIYEN.com is the website. Go there, but keep listening. Don't quit listening, because this is important. This is the real critical part in this show. So, Alastair, you're about acquiring the production of wells that are too small for the big companies to care enough about. So you acquire them at a really good price. Now, what do you do with the production and the wells that you acquire?
So there's two things we're looking to do. So the first aspect of the Ziyen advantage is for us to go in with our renewable energy infrastructure. And what we're looking to do is to generate the electricity to power the motor that moves the nodding donkey up and down. Or the
so
pump jack.
is the electricity that powers the motor of the pump, the nodding donkey as you call it, is that a significant expense compared to the revenue it generates?
Yeah, so essentially once you've actually struck oil, one of the biggest expenses is the electricity you have to pull off the grid to power the pump jack, because basically it's just it's a giant bit of metal that's just pushing down force, that's forcing oil back up from
and
the
that
ground.
requires energy. So are you using wind or solar, or what kind of renewables?
So what we will look to do is it's a containerized system that we're looking to test on there. That
You mean like a cargo container? That
like
kind of,
like a cargo container.
Yeah.
We'll bring it out. We'll just put it next to the nodding donkey, and then essentially it's a lot to do with battery storage as well. We'll get the capture energy through the day through solar and wind energy. We'll have it in the backup battery storage, and then rather than pull the electricity off the grid, we'll actually have our own electricity created from renewable energy infrastructure, and we'll use that to power the motor.
Will you have excess? Or will it provide enough to power the motor and nothing else, or will you generate excess at some point?
Yeah, there's potential to generate excess as well. So this is how we start to think in terms of, when you start thinking longer term with this project, Normally, your nodding donkey or well life, they talk about 10 to 15 years. Your solar panels is 30 years. So essentially, we could get to a point whereby we've paid off all the renewable energy infrastructure, and then we're creating electricity. Now, this is becoming of a lot of interest to the farmers that are there, because a lot of them want to move into electrical tractors, electrical combine harvesters.
Is this at the point where the well starts to run dry and it's producing less and less now because you've drained most of the oil that's tapped into?
Yeah, so essentially what happens is they normally leave about 70% of the oil behind.
No kidding.
Yeah. So what they're looking to do is take the highest production, so once it takes it there, so that it sort of goes in a curve in terms of, you get the highest production at the beginning, and then it starts to peter out from that as well.
Because the marginal cost of producing another barrel is just too low to make sense?
Yeah, then it becomes more and more difficult. You've got to flood it with water, so there's a lot of problems that can create as well. So it just becomes, for your traditional oil operators in the basin, because they've got other leases where they can drill, they just want to move on to the next opportunity and essentially go after the...
So what will you do with the solar energy that's generated in that cargo container that's sitting out on the farmer's land?
So this is basically, how do we get involved in this transition? And initially we thought, well, we could actually use it for selling back onto the grid, but then again, the problem this will create is, is some of these states, they're not going to let you sell the electricity. You're looking further down the line, but there's this transition with old to new energy just now anyway. So you've got all the farmers who now want to move away from the old, because their biggest cost is gas, gasoline to power their tractors,
right,
to power their...
And they're reliant on some kind of grid or some kind of supply chain.
Yeah, so essentially they don't want to pay for the infrastructure to actually create the electricity. So suddenly, if we had the opportunity whereby if you partner with us, two things will happen. After the oil's run out, we've got a second revenue stream for you, or we've got an opportunity for you to actually move into electric.
Is this like some sort of lease to own for the farmers? Will they end up owning the renewable energy source?
Yeah, well, we haven't really spoke about how that would work further down the line. It's just the opportunities that it starts to create. So ultimately, to my thought process is, in the end of the day, you're involved in a transition of energy right now. It's just, we've got green energy that's 17% of the power of the grid that's coming from renewable energy. Still, the majority is still from your fossil fuels. And it's just, how do you get from point A to point B? And that's where I see the sphere of the company. This is whereby we want to position ourselves in the middle and not talk about this is good and this is bad. Because if you think like that, you don't actually think about the energy you need to create to live, to switch the light on, anything else you use, oil, coal, nuclear, all these types of electricity sources for, and get involved in this transition of energy. To me, that's the key part of it, and it's trying to help join the dots for people so they can understand.
Because we can't just stop cold on our traditional sources of energy and go with green. We've got to have a transition in the middle.
Yeah, plus we need more energy all the time, so it's like we're using more and more energy. If we all switch to electric cars, that'll mean we'll go down with the consumption of oil, but that means the amount of energy we'll need to create from the grid to actually power everyone's electric cars is going to go way up.
And if they buy electric combines and tractors, they can plug in and get their recharge right there on the spot.
So you look for that. And then out in the Midwest, it was Anheuser-Busch have now...
InBev.
They're doing 100 hydrogen-powered trucks to deliver all their beer. So they've just said that. So essentially, they're starting to move towards this as well. Now, if Anheuser-Busch are doing it for Budweiser, everyone else is going to start doing it. And if they're going to start doing it from hydrogen, they're going to need additional places with hydrogen, garages or...
I didn't know hydrogen was still a thing in transportation, but it's very much a thing still.
It's
becoming tried it for years, right? Before the Prius really came out and they adopted electric as a big part of their model, they were really all in on the hydrogen. Maybe not all in, but they put a lot into hydrogen cars.
There's a huge focus on that with the technology as well. So, and to me, it's like you want to focus on all different aspects of energy rather than just saying we're just going to do one. It's just there's an energy mix.
I've got so many questions about this container itself. Does it become a fixed infrastructure that's meant to stay on this property, or is it movable? And after the fact, you could bring it to another nodding donkey?
It's going to be movable. It's the movability of it as well. So
and this is called the Ziyen Advantage.
The Ziyen Advantage system. So,
did you build? Is it a container that you put together different technologies from different manufacturers, or is all of this in-house stuff?
No, we're taking the best technology out there in the market to actually put the whole thing together.
So the advantage is you're bringing the best of all the technologies together. Alastair Caithness, wow, this is pretty exciting. I don't know how you sleep at night with all this on your plate, because this is like really cool stuff. CEO of Ziyen Oil and Energy. Ziyen.com is the website, Ziyen. This is BizTalk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smit.
And I'm Aaron Cannata.
The best is yet to come. I promise. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
So you know, all the designs are in place, and it's actually guys who worked with Shane offshore, a guy Andy Stevens and Morris Wright, who were boffins for Shell. They've already created similar type products for unmanned platforms out in the North Sea. So they're essentially taking that technology and coming to it. Now, I know a lot of people get involved in the renewable energy business and they create a product, and you know, it could be doing it for 10 years, and whether the product makes the market or anything else, it's just, you know, our plan is the minute it's in production, 2 weeks later we'll be on site and have the thing up and running, you know.
And it's transferable, upgradable. There's, I mean, it's got a lot of advantages.
The scalability for it is just could be huge. And then if the farmers start to see the real benefit of it, you know, you start looking at this, especially solar, because now because solar can just work alongside livestock and all sorts of things. They're actually creating these new solar farms whereby they've actually got it whereby you see the pictures, all the sheep and all the cows are underneath it, you know? Yeah. And then, because solar's just, it's not much to actually maintain it. It's just, it gets dirty, you know? So that's the problem, you've got to clean it all the time. But apart from that, it's actually, there's not many moving parts to it. So essentially, it's a good renewable energy source that's becoming more and more popular, and you know, especially in California. So my thought process is it's the right time to be involved in something like this. And the best thing we can do is, you know, once we're moving in production, rather than hypothetically talk about drawings and what you're going to do in year 8, actually just go and implement it, and then we can take the data, because that's why we want to acquire a producing lease, because if we drilled on the current leases we've got, you know, as the way Shane has explained it to me is that, you know, the well takes maybe 6 months for it to settle. So we can't actually have data to prove that what we're doing is actually working, because it'll be falsified data. So, you know, we're looking to buy a producing lease just now that's been producing oil since 2012. And so we're going to acquire something there. So we've got essentially 5 to 6 years worth of data to compare what we're doing straight away. So within 6 months, we'll be able to show people this videos of actually working, and then we'll be able to have the data to actually...
Have you got your first container product put together, or
all the plans, everything's been done by the guys. Yeah, it's already, they've gone through different iterations of it. It's essentially, from their perspective now, it's they just want to get it on site.
Welcome back. You're listening to BizTalk, believing is seen talk radio, where we make courageous contagious. And Ziyen is increasing oil production in the Midwest to meet the U.S. demand, and they are using renewable energy to drive down electricity costs for oil production and creating a long-term new renewable energy source to feed the grid. Wow. We're talking today with Alastair Caithness, CEO of Ziyen Oil and Energy. I'm Montana Smit.
I'm Aaron Cannata.
I'm Bob Ryan. Glad to have you with us. Alastair, thanks again for coming back in. This is a great story. So the concept is to take producing wells that you can buy the lease on.
Yeah, so we're going to, essentially the two things, we'll be buying leases and having a drilling operation, but essentially we want to buy the production as well. So we want to buy producing wells whereby we'll buy them, I wouldn't say at a steal, but at a discounted price, because they don't have many offers coming in for them right now. And then we'll look to basically move in straight away and apply the Ziyen Advantage system, whereby essentially we start to drive down, not only create our own electricity, but push down the production costs, so that increases the profitability of it. So we're looking to make profit from essentially day one.
What they're producing, is that what's considered crude oil?
Yes.
And then it would have to be refined. Are you going to be doing the refining as well? Or?
No. All we do is, it's crude oil. So we put them in the storage facilities, and in the Illinois basin, there's by Petro, they do the north part of the basin, a smaller refinery, and you've got the Country Mark as the big refinery, and they've got about 45 trucks that just drive around the basin constantly. So they know when these storage facilities are full, and they just drain the oil and take it back to the refinery. And essentially the price we get is $10 less than the oil price. So if you go to Country Mark's website, they will tell you on this specific day what they will sell the oil for. So if the oil price is $70, Country Mark will give you $60.
So, do you know how many of these leases are available to you at a price that makes sense? I mean, how many wells are in this category?
There's thousands of them.
Thousands?
Yeah. So it's like, 'cause we're looking to buy up a lot of the production from smaller operators. So we're going after your mom and pop's business that are looking there. There are people that have maybe been in the oil business a long time, want to get out of the business. You'll find that the reason why a lot of these people want to get out of the business now is because it's always been passed down father to son, father to son.
It's multiple generations.
Yeah, and then, if you're growing up in the Midwest and you don't want to be an oil producer or a farmer, then a lot of these younger kids now, they want to move to New York or to Los Angeles. And, if your parents are making $8 million a year, you think,
you can do that.
I can do that, So, and then I'm not going to go back and spend all this time sort of busting my ass doing the oil business when I want to go and experience these other parts of life. So essentially that's also created a lot of opportunities for us as well. So there's a lot of people within these Midwest areas that are looking to get out of the basin. But essentially what we're going in, but they'll still have all these employees. And if we don't go in and start picking up a lot of this small stuff, it'll just evaporate off the marketplace. So essentially you're going to keep a lot of people in work.
So if nobody does pick up the lease, it just runs dry and they take the pump out and...
They'll just leave the pump jack on
they'll just leave it.
There's actually a guy that I know there that he comes around and he actually cleans everything up for you. And then he takes all the pump jacks and everything else.
Utilities are a lot of times either government subsidized or operated kind of business. And I know a lot of states don't allow you to be off-grid, right? So if you're putting up your solar panels on your own home, you almost have to connect. I think here in California and even Florida. Is there any issue with that? Meaning, are you going to have to connect to the grid in these states? And then is there...
this is the big advantage of what we're actually trying to do, is the fact that if we can create the electricity ourselves, then we can actually operate off-grid. So at the moment, 95 to 96% of all these pump jacks are all connected to the grid. Mm-hmm. So suddenly, if we bring in the new technology, you can actually produce oil off-grid. So suddenly that opens up so much more opportunities, because then you're not having to have the problem of having to get everything to connect to grid to pull the electricity to power the pump jack. If we can do this ourselves, then suddenly it creates even more opportunities. And to me, it's you get involved in this off-grid production of oil. In America, the opportunities when you start looking at places like East Africa and other places as well, our technology eventually could get exported all over the world. So
it's very scalable around the world.
Yeah, very scalable.
You call them containers. Are they actually built-in shipping containers? Like, are you buying used or new shipping containers?
It'll be. Shane's basically, he's got the whole idea behind it. So Shane Fraser, I've known him for 35 years. So essentially, he's my partner in the whole process. And obviously, it's a company now, so we've built a company. But really, as we started going forward, he was the oil and gas expert that I brought in to do that. So, it's his vision and how this works. And Shane's background is that he was 16 years old. He was taken by Shell. He was put through as instrument technician, hands-on. He told me he was the worst paid guy out in the North Sea, because he was basically out there when he was 16 and a half, working in a sort of YTS.
Any relation to the Fraser clan in Outlander?
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
You an Outlander.
He's now the top guy. You know what I mean? So Shane's a fantastic guy, a great friend of mine. But he's a genius when it comes to this. And then they put him through engineering programs, things like that. So he's been trained by Shell for 25 years. So the way his mind works is just incredible. And then he's brought in other experts from Shell and other oil companies to come in to bring this technology in. So essentially we're tapping into some of the best trained guys in some of the best oil companies in the world, and we're applying these guys' technology and brain power to new developments in the basin.
So early on you talked about the life of a well being 10, 15 years. And the life of the solar panels maybe being up to 30 years.
Yeah.
So you're putting in technology today that will go well beyond the life of the well. In fact, you're getting well leases that are already in production, so they've already used up some of their life. So you're getting them midway or near the end of their life?
Yeah, and we're looking to put in like enhanced oil recovery as well, so whereby we can actually look to is through. So enhanced oil recovery has not been utilised much in these basins before because of the cost problems. They're quite expensive if you're using it with the chemicals. We're looking to do it, the first one, with the microbiology and microbes. So we're going to work with people that are specifically designed for basins that are sandstone bottom, whereby the The microbes are MEOR, it's called, and then that will allow to increase production, but also increase the sort of tail at the well. So not only the fact that we are looking to make the money in the first 3 years, because any startup the biggest problem with a startup is you've got to start making revenue and you've got to make it quick. We can't go into the oil and gas business and think we don't have the capex spend of the big oil companies. We can't say it's going to be year 8, 9, or 10 that we are making money. We need to make money now. You know?
So you're gonna have the capability of increasing the production, making the well last longer. When we get back, I want to get to the Autism Speaks, but we can maybe wrap up on what you do with the container, the Ziyen Advantage product after the well's gone. Alastair Caithness is with us, CEO of Ziyen Oil and Energy, Ziyen.com, Ziyen.com is the website. This is BizTalk. I'm Bob Ryan.
I'm Montana Smit.
And I'm Aaron Cannata.
One segment left. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Yeah, where did the time go? So it's just...
Okay.
This is a really good story.
That's your back
It really
end,
is.
and that's your website for Autism Speaks.
And we got... It's .org.
Oh, it is? Oh,
Yeah.
here.
I got in trouble last time for saying .com.
It's right here on the
Larissa, who
card.
runs the thing here, she picked up on it, you know. It's,
.org. You want my whiteout?
No. She whites.
I love whiteout.
white out, yeah.
She doesn't just scratch through something like I do. She whites it out.
The young kids even know what whiteout is nowadays.
Do you know what whiteout is? Space key.
He uses
Yeah,
it.
I use it a lot. I used it a lot when I was a kid.
All right, okay, so it's...
I love it.
Were you sniffing it or actually using it
I
to
was
white out?
I was using it
Oh,
because
yeah.
like when I went to boarding school, they didn't allow us to use pencils, so we only allowed to use pens and whiteouts. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, they didn't allow Yeah, they didn't allow us pencils.
That's
seems
interesting.
Very counterintuitive.
Yeah.
If they're going to allow you to erase, why not have an eraser rather than
like
whiteout?
math was. It was fine with. Well, actually, yeah, they wanted us to use pen for whatever reason.
You know, when we did transactions in the financial world, we weren't allowed to use pencil, for obvious reasons, and we couldn't white anything out.
Wow.
If we
You
made a
could line
mistake
it.
on something, you have to line through it and then write the term above it or whatever you're going to put in.
Signature or initial by
Yeah.
any changes.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, because I remember just a couple of years ago, while you were sick, when I was with New England, I think, they finally went out and they went around all the offices, New England MetLife, and said, you can no longer even have whiteout in the offices.
No
So
way.
there was this big purge, like they're going to put the whiteout industry out of business.
It's just, yeah. Well, in golf in Scotland anyway, if you make a mistake with a score, you can't use wipeout. You've got to you scribble it, you write the score
That's
next, but you've
serious.
got to initial it.
Yeah, you always initial, right? And
If you
I
don't-
acknowledge that this is
No,
the change.
you can't cheat at golf. That's the rule.
Experienced business leaders to new entrepreneurs. This consumer marketing routine, educated or inspired. ESPN700.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to BizTalk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we make courageous contagious. We'd like to thank our award-winning engineer, Jeff Bilodeau, our show music by Derek Audette, our interns, Sarah, Andrew, Deidre, and Sunit, who's in studio with us today. Thank you. We could not do it without you. I'm Montana Smit.
I'm Aaron Cannata.
I'm Bob Ryan, and it's shows like this that make me wish we had a 3-hour format because, wow, we could go on for 3 hours easy about this. You have a great concept, Alastair. The ideas sound like they're so good. We've got the oil leases that you're buying up at a discount because they're the smaller ones that the big companies don't want to deal with anymore. You've got lots of ways to get to those. There's thousands of those. But you're extending the life of the oil in concept by providing microbes I'm thinking of little microbic oil drill instructors.
That works. Whatever visual works for you, that works.
So you can make the well last longer possibly, and you're going to deliver the Ziyen Advantage, which is a cargo container with the solar and the battery storage in it so that you can transition from the electric grid to now self-producing the electric for this, correct?
Correct.
Now, your solar panels will last much longer than the oil well will traditionally.
Yeah.
But what do you do then once the oil in the well goes dry and you can no longer produce anything out of it? What do you do with your cargo container that's got the solar panels and the batteries in it?
Well, the way Shane's looking to design it is you can just fit everything back together, and you can just come with a a truck,
Put it on a
back
truck and
take it to the next one, you know. So that's his thought process, is to have it so mobile that you can do this. And, you know, the way he's designing it is in that basis.
Can you bring an extra one to my house so we can run off? No?
Yeah, I'm sure we can. we can try and drill for oil as well. So it's... but that, yeah, to me, that's what's exciting about it as well. So it's exciting, and then the stuff we're trying to do with the microbes and MEOR, it's not traditional with normal enhanced oil recovery where they're using chemicals. But then there's, you know, that's highly costly, and that's the reason why they're not doing it in the basin. So
and plus they're chemicals.
Yeah. So, but then again, you know, if you start to bring in people who are experts in that, and you can bring them in and show them how this operates here. See, because most guys who operate in the oil and gas business have never seen anything like the Illinois Basin, because they just operate in big business. So when you take it to this, you've got to get these guys to come in who are super knowledgeable to look at the opportunities there and seeing how we can do it on a low cost basis, because ultimately, if we can get involved in increasing the production in somewhere like the basin from 30,000 barrels to, say, 90,000 barrels back to where it was in its heyday, it would have huge inward investment into that area.
Are people in these areas wary of the big business? Like, do they look at them kindly? Do they look at them as their competitors? I mean, I'm just wondering if when you come in, are you having to explain to them how you're not the ExxonMobil of the world?
Well, they just know that, you know. I mean, so all these farmers, everybody there, they're all smart anyway. It's just all the farmers are super smart. You know, when people say, "Oh, the Midwest farmers are dumb," these people are not dumb.
They're brilliant.
They are brilliant, and then these people are like financial geniuses as well. They set themselves up as trusts and all sorts of things. So there's lots of. I'm trying to use I wasn't going to say creative accounting. That would be a nice way to do it.
Yeah. They just understand the laws and use them to their advantage. Right?
Yeah, they're there, and they do it with the crops as well. When we first went there, they were all basically growing corn, you know, and letting the corn rot for subsidies. So it was weird. You go in a place, then every place you went to...
I know, isn't that insane?
Yeah. So
we're taking fields and using up the chemicals, and they're not fallow, so they're not rejuvenating, and we're just letting it rot.
Yeah, we're just letting it rot because it's the government's paying them not to sell the corn because it can affect the corn price. So when you've had these natural disasters in America, it seems ridiculous that you can't just say, well, why don't you just harvest the corn and give it to these people in Houston and other places whereby you've had these huge natural disasters and help feed them. But no, you're better to let it rot, and then you mush it all up for cattle, and then you get your subsidy check, you know.
Let's shift gears, if we might. By the way, the Ziyen.com website is Ziyen.com. If you don't mind, can we shift gears? And we only have like 3 minutes left.
I know.
Autism Speaks is very near and dear to your heart, as it is mine. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about your involvement.
So this year I'm chairman of the San Diego Autism Speaks Walk. So it's a great privilege for me to be involved in this. I lead the committee for the walk itself, and then we get involved in all sorts of different events throughout the year to increase branding and awareness, and also raise money for Autism Speaks.
What's your connection to autism?
My oldest son's autistic, so he's in the autism spectrum.
And how old is he?
He's 6 years old.
6 years old. There are so many different kinds of autisms, I guess, in the spectrum now.
Yeah, so they normally say he's on the spectrum.
Yeah,
you know, so within autism, that's what everybody said, he's on the spectrum. But sometimes you would have to say he's on the autism spectrum, because otherwise, if people aren't aware of the word, it's the spectrum.
My grandson has autism, and it's really kind of a punch in the gut when you hear the diagnosis. You know, was it like that for you?
Yeah, it's very difficult for the family to deal with. You don't really know what's going to be ahead of you, but ultimately it's the ability, this early intervention, and get the diagnosis. Because once the actually diagnosis is in place, it opens up the therapy, and 95% of therapy actually works. So this is why it's key to get the therapy, and the earlier you can actually get it, the better it becomes. You know, earlier we were actually speaking about the amount of homeless people who are potentially on the autism spectrum, and they did a sample study up in LA, and it was between 12 and 20% of the people who were actually homeless were on the autism spectrum. Wow. So it's, that's a huge amount of numbers. So when you actually look at people out there, where you don't think, 2 out of 5 people or 1 out of 5 people, homeless people, are actually potentially autistic, so you don't actually think that. You just think they're there because of drugs or drink or alcohol or bad decisions. You don't think that because of a mental health problem, and then because of it's undiagnosed, they've just been left there, and they don't have the support structure whereby by getting the diagnosis early, you can create the support structure, and by creating the support structure, then you can actually start to help.
How early can we diagnose a lot of the
Say
autism?
at 2 years old.
Really, at this point?
And what is Autism Speak's primary goal? Are they funding research? Are they helping people with autism, live more fulfilled lives? And what's the goal?
It would be both, actually. So it's definitely looking at increasing awareness for it, acceptance for it, but also for people who are on the spectrum, providing
And
therapy.
understanding. AutismSpeaks.org is the website?
Yes, is the website.
AutismSpeaks.org. Alistair, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alistair
That was
Caithness,
excellent.
CEO of Ziyen Oil and Energy. ZIYEN.com is the website. Don't forget to visit AutismSpeaks.org. You've been listening to BISTalk, Believing is Seeing Talk Radio, where we make courageous contagious. I'm Bob Ryan.
Montana Smit.
No, I'm Aaron Cannata.
Go do something great for yourself, folks. Take that mad leap of faith. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Great show.